I send greetings to you from Conceiving on yet another gloriously warm and sunny Indian summer's afternoon. Quite amazing. Autumn, but it's still summer. Well, maybe not officially still summer, but with an Indian summer, it's really summer. Isn't it wonderful? Well, without further ado, we are going to plunge right in because we have hopefully some very amusing and entertaining times ahead of us. But there are also serious issues at hand, and I think we need to address those as well. So without further ado, Nessa V says, excited to see the Royal Royals, Will and Kate, on the cover of People magazine. They look so natural and unpretentious. The polar opposite of the Harkles on that ridiculous Time cover. Would have loved to see the spare and the snare's face. The spare and the snare's face. That's a new one, I love it. When they saw the People cover, laugh out loud. And I bet they'll sell more magazines too. Oh well, they just might have to start selling pics of Lily merch sooner than they thought. Huh. Yes, Catherine and William were on the cover of People magazine. Very nice cover. And it gets a very, very naughty message across. Because the message is they are, as Harry and Meghan would say, authentic. They're the authentic ones. Well, and they're sort of, the message is, you know, Harry and Meghan are all very good and well when we have to fulfill our obligations to Sunshine Sachs and the owners of the magazine, but given half a chance, the journalist in some of us will come out and we will actually do a magazine cover that makes sense. And it therefore gives the message that they're getting everything right. Of course, the implication is that the other favourites on the cover are getting everything wrong. Terrible, terrible. Poor Meghan and Harry. Mickey, come and console Marty. Come and console Marty. Marty's grief-stricken on Meghan and Harry's behalf. In fact, I tell you what, Mickey, can you do me a favour? Can you go and get the phone and can you tell the pilot that he's to stop juicing up the jet? Because woke people like me and Harry and Meghan have decided that we're not going to fly by private plane today. We'll do it tomorrow. Oh, God, you couldn't make it up. There's such hypocrites. It's one rule for them and the other for everyone else. But you know, I understand it. I spent years of my life in the drawing rooms of Park and Fifth Avenue. It has to be said, pretty much old world drawing rooms, or if they were going to be new money drawing rooms, they were people of taste and discernment like Bob Taplinger. They weren't the crass, crummy crowd that you get nowadays. And they knew how to behave, and they knew how to present themselves, and they knew how to present their clients. They didn't need to constantly berate people with the fact that they were classy. They simply just presented them in an elegant and decorous manner, and everything else followed as a matter of course. Anyway, me here says, it's all for PR. Listen to their speech during the global citizen stint. The renter crowd were cheering at the wrong times. I did notice that actually, although not always at the wrong times, but the ones in the front took their cues and the ones in the back did something entirely different. It was clear no one was paying attention to the Harkles' messages. Sad? Not at all. Actually, the purpose of the exercise wasn't for people to pay attention to Meghan and Harry's message. It was that Meghan and Harry would use that as an opportunity to springboard to ever greater marching and worldly success. That's what that's all about. You know, everything is a photo op. Everything is an opportunity. These people are crass opportunists, and everything is about creating an opportunity for the next opportunity. You know, Ken Sunshine is one of the most radical supporters of the left wing of the Democrat Party in America. He's great friends with people like Al Sharpton. I rest my case on that. He is definitely what in England we would call a champagne socialist. He has impeccable connections in the Democrat Party. Don't think that Ken Sunshine didn't pick up the phone and phone Bill de Blasio and Katie Hochul and all of the other people. And don't think he didn't quite deliberately create a state visit of sorts for people who have no status states-wise. So, I just make that point for what it's worth. I also noticed, I should say, and I found this rather distressing, that any gentleman, much less a royal duke and a prince, could be rabble-rousing the way Harry was rabble-rousing. When one makes a speech, one does not rouse the rabble. One appeals to the intellect, the common sense, the heart and the wisdom of the listener without rabble-rousing. It is undignified to rabble-rouse. Harry was rabble-rousing, the sort of, do you think, I mean, so tacky. You know, the inelegance is what gets to me. The inelegance of this couple. You know, they are so crass, crude, common, vulgar and déclassé. There is practically nothing they do that strikes the right note, which is hardly surprising, because he is behaving like a rabble-rouser, and she is not only a rabble-rouser, but she is, if not in background totally, certainly in spiritual, shall we say, configuration, rabble. Shara says, Lady C, I love your show. Thank you very much. It's so refreshing to be able to hear the truth. Well, I don't see the point in speaking anything but. My question is it true that the royal family has an apartment in New York and they aren't letting Meghan and has-been use it? Much love. Oh, well, it's not oh, by the way, I've just touched my Moretto Veneziano. And may I make the point? Amaretto Veneziano is a symbol of racial inclusiveness and appreciation of different races. It is not, as the ignorant racists would like you to believe, a symbol of racism. It has nothing, incidentally, to do with sub-Saharan blacks. Moretto should be the giveaway. Moors, North Africans, princes or emirs, as you can see, because slaves didn't wear jeweled turbans and jeweled breastplates. So, just in case any of the uneducated ignoramuses who I know float around on various YouTube channels decide they're going to have a go, don't make an idiot of yourself. Amaretto Veneziano is a symbol of racial inclusiveness, and those who wear it are not proclaiming racism, they are proclaiming loving other races. Okay, so now where was I? I got sidetracked. Yes, the apartment in New York. I think you're near enough, but you've not actually hit the nail on the head. The royal family can use the Consul General's living quarters in New York. Let's put it that way. The Consul General can host the royal family, and the Consuls General often do host the royal family. They do not host the royal family when it is an unofficial visit. Actually, sometimes they do, in fact, if they're in favour, they do. Harry and Meghan? No. They've stepped down as working members of the royal family. And contrary to what some of you believe, the fact that they are still on the royal family website and that Harry's official residence in this country is Frogmore Cottage, and that's on the website, doesn't mean that they are working members of the royal family or acknowledged to be such, or that they represent the Queen. They do not. They do not represent the monarchy in any way, shape or form, nor do they represent the British nation. They do not represent the state of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, or indeed the Commonwealth in any way, shape or form. Their inclusion on the website is simply a statement of fact that they are still members of the royal family. Non-working, not allowed to use their Royal Highness titles, but still members of the royal family. Several people have questioned me about this. Several people have made the observation that if indeed they are being included, it might be giving a wrong message, and I agree with you. You know, I think Harry and Meghan's bolt for, not freedom, for mammon, because they didn't bolt for freedom, they bolted for mammon. Their bolt into Hollywood's version of Fort Knox is, in fact, if you stop to think about it, a one-off, and it's also the first time any actual member of the royal family, save for the late King Edward VIII, has done anything like this. King Edward VIII, when he abdicated, and he was a king, he wasn't a prince, and he wasn't a lowly prince, and he wasn't number 6 in the line of succession. He was the king. Before that, he had been the Prince of Wales, and he was the most popular Prince of Wales of all time. He became king, and he was immensely popular for the 10 months of his reign, simply not with the establishment. And he was effectively shoved off his throne, with Wallis Simpson being used as the, shall we say, incentive to shove him off the throne, because the British establishment and the royal courtiers did not like his political beliefs, nor did they like his modus operandi. That is not the same thing as what Harry and Meghan have done. Edward VIII abdicated and expected to be back here a year later in the role of the youngest son. He expected to remain living in England, and it didn't work out like that. But it was not an elective on his part. If you read any biography, or indeed his autobiography, you will discover that the Duke of Windsor spent much of the remainder of his life trying to get the British government to give him official duties. That is nowhere near akin to what Harry and Meghan have done. Nowhere. So I think we need to make that point first of all. Secondly, I think this is an experiment. In fact, I don't think, I know it is an experiment, because I speak to people who are in the know, and to an extent, some of this, shall we say, game plan is being made up as the whole scenario evolves. So to not mix our metaphors, as the game progresses, the game plan keeps on being embellished, and they are hoping to create some structure out of disorder and come up with a game plan that will have some substance and some parameters and some rules, which Harry and Meghan are making virtually impossible for them. So to an extent, the whole thing is an experiment. And in my opinion, we need to take a leaf out of Sweden's book. Not Sweden's book nowadays. Sweden's book between the wars and after the Second World War, when any member of the royal family of Sweden who wished to marry inappropriately or to step down had to renounce his rights of succession to the throne and give up his princely rank. Several of them did it. Not one, several. And I think the only way forward is going to turn out to end up creating a Swedish version of, a British version, I should say, of the old Swedish model. And I'll tell you why. I have it on absolutely reliable information that all the royals and all the courtiers are pulling out their hair on a daily basis because of the antics of Meghan and Harry and the potential damage that they are doing, and how they have usurped the role of the British royal family so that they are now the royal family transplanted to Montecito. They have set up a rival court, and this is causing huge concerns at Buckingham Palace. It has to be said, to an extent, they have been spending the last several years, because my book has been published for nearly 2 years now. It took a year to write. So we're speaking about a 2.5-year lead in. And I was informed that there were grave concerns about the way Meghan and Harry were behaving then and how uncontrollable they were. Well, they are now absolutely uncontrollable. And not only are they uncontrollable, they have been creating havoc and mischief. They keep on stepping on every royal's toes. Anyway, enough said for the moment. The reason why, though, to nail down the question definitively, the reason why Meghan and Harry would not be hosted by the Consul General in New York is that they are deemed unfit to be guests officially. I hope I have put it very succinctly. Alwyn Wayne says, "Dear Lady C, do you think that has-been and me again are behaving dishonourably by carrying out what is effectively a royal tour in New York? They chose out, but they are attempting to pursue their preferred half-in, half-out agenda in direct controversy of their agreement with Her Majesty the Queen. What next? Their own court circular?" Very droll. I wouldn't put it past them. I love your entertaining and informative videos, and especially your straight-talking views. Thank you. Which you deliver without fear or favour. Meghan and has been. Use it. Much love. Oh, I don't know what you mean about Meghan and has been using it. They are resistant to anything called good sense. So, yes, what next? Their own court circular? They have a version of the court circular already, but it's not dignified like the court circular. It's not published in the Times and the Telegraph on a daily basis. They have a down-market version of the court circular. It's called Sunshine Sacks, People Magazine, Vanity Fair, Harper's Bazaar, etc., etc. Page 6. They are leaked information, all these publications, on a daily basis by their PR people. That is their version of a court circular. Vulgar, déclassé, classy with a capital K and my finger cocked out so everybody knows I have written. Well, I think I've actually sort of answered the question or addressed the fact that the palace is already extremely disconcerted by the havoc that Meghan and Harry have been creating. You know, for instance, day before yesterday, the papers were full of Catherine Cambridge and Emma Raducanu, you know, who's just won the lovely, beautiful British girl, 18 years old, who won the US Open. And they had a tennis match because, of course, Catherine is the patron of the Lawn Tennis Association, and she has just taken over from the Duke of Kent. And, you know, it made the papers, but Catherine and William are not attention grabbers. They hopefully get attention for what they do, and they only do what they should be doing. So to some extent, that's not quite as exciting as what next are the Mavericks going to come up with, which is more exciting. I can see both points of view, but I think as long as the papers keep on covering what the other royals are doing, and they do keep on covering what the other royals are doing. And remember, America doesn't count, with due respect, in terms of the British monarchy. What counts is Britain and the Commonwealth. So it doesn't matter whether People magazine care or don't care. It really doesn't matter whether they cover the activities of the other members of the royal family. What does matter is that the British cover, and they are covering. It has to be said, the woke publications and the woke media, including the BBC, bend over backwards to cover Meghan and Harry more than the rest of the royal family. They do this not only because they're newsworthy, but because it is furthering their political agenda. But they are still covering the activities of the other members of the royal family. And as long as they do that, I actually do not think that it is so awful that Meghan and Harry are constantly in the news. They are the symbols, the empty vessels making a lot of noise. You know, the cymbals clashing, cymbals, by the way, to those of you who aren't so au fait with all English terms or orchestral terms. They make a lot of noise. They shake things up. But they are excellent foils for the rest of the family. So I think that there are justifiable concerns, but I can also see the upside to Harry and Meghan's wild card behaviour. Ewan McEwen says, Vanity Fair informs us that there was a camera operator discreetly following these two the entire time while they were in New York. No surprise, and what's my thought on it? Harry and Meghan do nothing except for money and for publicity and for attention seeking. And that ties in with money as well. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. What they are doing in America and being paid for, they could have been doing in Britain and being subsidized by the state and not having it converted into cash to be put into their bank accounts. They are making a documentary for Netflix, the Harry and Meghan Truman Show. Look how classy I am. And Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up. I'm just so classy. I'll make it come and give your Marty a lick. She's just the classiest thing. She takes tea with her finger cocked out. and she wears winter clothes even when it's 80-something degrees. And she's just so classy that even though, insofar as I recall, the old rule in New York, and certainly in American society, was no white after Labor Day. There is Meghan in a white dress after Labor Day. I tell you, that joke just can't resist breaking a rule. It's actually sociopathic. It's so flagrant. No white after Labor Day. And she's wearing white. Sokini Cock says, according to page 6, Meghan's coats are for hiding microphones. Meghan and Harry were secretly filming their New York trip for Netflix. Yes, they were. Yes, they were. They need content. Let's see if the content is going to be interesting. I understand that Meghan and Harry are actually they've wobbled, that they are a lot less confident than they were, although they're still, you know, big smiles, Sage, big smiles, big smiles, big smiles, big smiles. There's a camera, look right in the camera, H. You know, you've got to do it just like me. Big smiles, big smiles. Act as if everybody's going to think that we're great successes if we declare we are. Of course, things have not gone well for them. I understand that they are very up and down, and that they are very troubled, because no matter what plans they have been implementing and are continuing to implement, everything they do falls flat or generates great hostility. They at first were able to deceive themselves into thinking, oh, it doesn't matter because it's only in Britain. Then it doesn't matter, it's only in Britain and the Commonwealth. Well, now it's washed upon American shores. And I understand that they are pretty upset and pretty uncertain. And several people have observed that their demeanor on this New York trip was a lot more measured and uncertain and tentative than it has ever been. And there's a reason for it. And the reason is that they are no longer so confident. You know, BS, as in Bachelor of Science, only goes so far. And I'm afraid that their Bachelors of Science have taken them only as far as it's able to take them, because the backlashes have been tremendous, as we all know, and it is the bankers and it is the money men who have been rattled and who have made them rattled. I understand as well that Meghan has been comfort eating. When she's not wildly up, she's pretty down, and she's been comfort eating. Hence why she is heavier now than she appears to have ever been. But those thighs have been expanding for the last year. They have been expanding even when she lost that baby so tragically, you know, the one where she lost it and she was in her arms and she felt this searing pain in an evocation of Julia Roberts in some movie. And so she crashed to the ground, singing him a lullaby, and noticed that there was a crayon in the distance, and of course, being a control freak, had to get the crayon as well, because she believes in everything being perfect. God. Comfort eating. The thighs have grown exponentially, which I actually think is a pretty good thing, because as the Jamaicans would say, what a way she maga and she have chicken foot. She don't have chicken foot no longer. She now has thighs. I mean, her legs have more shape now than they had before, and I think that's all to the good. And under the white dress, white after Labor Day that she wore, the Valentino dress on stage, the mini dress, people have commented that her waistline is thicker than it was when she was swanning around New York in the winter clothes. There's a reason for that, I'll tell you. When you're mic'd up, you have a belt around your waist often. That thickens things. That's what she had around her waistline. That's why she looks so much thicker around the waist than she did the day before. Merching and micing. And isn't it interesting that Vanity Fair could impart such delicate information and valid Meghan and Harry's privacy the way they've done? I think they ought to sue. And I think they ought to stop allowing darling Ken of Sunshine Sacks to give any information to Page 6, because some of it is opening them to mockery. They're all racists, all of them, just racists. Lord Ubano says, Dear Lady C, did you see this video in the parking lot of the Harlem school Harry visited? It wasn't all unicorns and rainbows for Harry and Meghan. I looked at the video. He's booed. He's also subjected to some pretty graphic, rather, shall we say, indecorous language. Paula Wing says, check out how vaccine passports will affect future air travel and the part Travalyst Limited, one of Harry's organizations, plays in it. Paula Wing, Travalyst is not an organization, it is a company. It is a company. It is not a non-profit, nor is it a charity. It's no organization, it is a company. Yes, yet again, you have alighted upon the fact that Harry and Meghan are all about making money and using their status and their profiles to make money. Yes, I have to tell you, people who think that they are completely idiotic are wrong. I mean, he's not the brightest bulb in the chandelier, but she definitely is not dumb. People seem to think that because she is tone deaf and that she has no insight and that she has no obvious empathy, that she is stupid. Einstein's definition of insanity was if you do the same thing 999 times and on the 1000th time you expect it to have a different outcome. That's insanity. That's not stupidity. That's insanity. You can be sane and stupid, sane and clever, dumb and insane, and bright and insane. That is the results of her lacunae, shall we say, are not indicative of stupidity. They are indicative of disconnection from reality, which in some ways can be categorized as a form of insanity. So I hope I make that point clear. Royal Duggars says, they need to watch the film of the Duke of Windsor visiting Nazi Germany. That's about how they look in New York this week. Pathetic, phony and self-absorbed. Yes, I couldn't agree more. The 1937 visit of the Duke and Duchess of Windsor to Nazi Germany was one of the great errors of the Duke of Windsor's life. He did it because the Nazis were going to receive the Duchess as if she were a member of the royal family, which she had been declared she was not. And to him, it was important that she be acknowledged as a royal highness and that she be given all the honours due to the wife of a royal highness who had been king. His position has merit because he was not allowed to marry her under a morganatic union, meaning that if she wasn't good enough to be his queen, he couldn't marry her. And that if he married her, she had to be his queen. Then they created, mischievously and actually unlawfully, a morganatic status for her after he had given up his throne for her. I think that was actually a pretty low blow. I think it was low and I think it was uncalled for. I think it shouldn't have happened and it created no end of trouble. And he never forgave it with a certain amount of justification. But that was one of his strong incentives for actually undertaking the tour of Nazi Germany. He was also interested and had always been interested in the living conditions of the working class. And the tour was to show what the German government had achieved in the 4 years that the Nazis had been in power, because they had achieved an economic miracle of sorts. He was then supposed to be going and doing an American tour, but of course the publicity was so adverse that the American tour had to be scrapped because the American unions were up in arms, because Charles Bedaux, who had organized both tours, had created a system of efficiency in the workplace which the unions in America were dead against. And they had been lying in wait to find a way of sabotaging the visit, and they found a way because of the adverse reaction to the Duke and Duchess of Windsor's tour of Germany. So that's how that happened, and it had a lifelong adverse impact upon the Duke's reputation. Is this going to have a lifelong adverse impact upon Harry and Meghan's reputation. It's just another nail in their coffin, my dear. There's so many nails in that basket of nails that one more is going to gild the lily as opposed to make a huge difference. And yes, they come across as phony and self-absorbed. Chrissy Richards says, I thought Harry was a nervous wreck with photo flashes, etc. They didn't seem to bother him in the US. Is there a reason why? Of course there's a reason why, Chrissy Richards. When Harry was so distressed, Oprah, I'm just distressed every time I see a flash. It takes me right back to my mother's death. Talk about cynically abusing the death and exploiting the death of your unfortunate mother. However, that was to gain sympathy. I need sympathy. I'm a mess. I've been messed up by being a prince and all that privilege. Meg's put it all in my head, and Meg's shown me the light. Yes, the light. The light is very dark, but it's light. Crikey, you couldn't make up all of this insanity, could you? Harry is not afraid of flashes. Harry warms to a photographer's lens, the way Meghan warms lustily to the invitation of money. They both have an atavistic adoration of the camera, and she of money as well. Don't for a second be fooled. Don't be fooled. Harry loves a flashbulb. And what he said to Oprah on that ludicrous, pathetic display of emotional claptrap only shows how completely unreliable a witness he is to not only his life, but his feelings. Lasso Vida Boy says, Lady C, where are the environmentalists out? Lasso Vida Boy says, Lady C, where is the environmentalists' outrage over Harry and Meghan flying by private jet to New York? I'll tell you where it is. It's filed under W for woke, H for hypocrite, I for inconsistency, and C for claptrap. You notice when they are preaching, they are allowed to tell ordinary people what to do. But they are extraordinary, and therefore they are allowed to do it. Now, I have to tell you, being as familiar as I am with America, I well see why people in America rebel against the notion of the 1% swanning around as if they are entitled to the whole of the state of the United States and that it exists for their convenience. I get it. I find it deeply offensive when people do not have sufficient modesty and respect for those who are less advantaged than they are. It is a very bad policy. But the rich in America have always flaunted their wealth in a way that the rich in Europe have not done since the 18th century. Because in Europe, people experienced the revolution in France, the fact it could be exported elsewhere, the fact that Napoleon conquered, if not half of Europe, maybe the 3/4 of Europe, and that bit of Europe that he didn't conquer, he had alliances with. So for a short while, Napoleon was literally master of all of Europe. And Napoleon, remember, started out as a revolutionary general. Then in 1848, that was the year of revolutions in Europe, the Austrian emperor had to abdicate. Various German states had revolutions. I could go on and on. The French monarchy fell. So I'll stop there. I don't think we need to have a history lesson. But the point I'm making is that Europe, we learned a long time ago, don't flaunt your wealth. Americans who are very rich love flaunting their wealth. Not only do they love flaunting it, they actually don't understand that not everybody exults in their good fortune the way they do. And they get very used to creature comforts. And to them, it is infra dig. For instance, I'll use an example. A great friend of mine was the famous designer Arnold Scarsi. I said to Arnold, why don't you and Parker, who was his husband, Parker Ladd, come and stay with me at the chateau in France? He said, darling, I'd love to, but you know, now that I've retired, I don't have the income to fly by private jet across the Atlantic. I just can't afford it anymore. I said, so Arnold, you know, suffer, go first class. He said, first class? You've got to be joking, never. It was like I told him, go into a leper colony before they knew how to cure leprosy. There is something very captivating about the excessiveness of luxuriousness and of indulgence in the upper reaches of American society, small s, not large s, at least amongst Epicureans and people who had an appreciation of luxury. We now have some of the billionaires, the Silicon Valley billionaires, who pride themselves on having no appreciation of luxury or beauty until you're asked onto their 300-foot yacht. But that's a very small group of Americans who sort of fly under the radar. Most very rich Americans definitely fly well above the radar. Harry and Meghan have reached the stage in life where they are luxury fiends. She, of course, has never been used to this sort of way of life. I mean, it's really rather sad, you know. And Harry, who's used to a degree of luxury, is not used until recently to billionaire luxury. Harry was used to royal and aristocratic luxury. That does not, by and large, include private jets. Take it from me, it doesn't. However, they've now stepped up in the world and they are into their private jets. Yeah, they're going to preach to us about carbon footprints as they put on elephantine shoes to ever enlarge their carbon footprints. But that's the sort of thing that has put the banana skins underneath their success. And that's why she needs to comfort eat. And now we come to the rather important and not particularly elevating question of Harry's conduct in New York. And I'm going to read out a series of questions and observations from people. This is just a representative sample. It needs to be done because it's important. The issues are very important. Sherry Hudnall says, "Did you see the video of Harry hugging the children?" "I did. The little girl on his right, he clawed her! Exclamation mark. The little boy in front of him, he threw into the other children! Exclamation mark. Looks like he actually picked him up. So glad the teacher stepped in and took Harry away from the children. Teacher saw both and took him over to the bleachers and separated him from the kids. Don't know what set Harry off. I've seen that video repeatedly. It is not a pretty sight. It is unmistakably disturbing." I will read the next comment. Tessa Riles says, "Dear Lady C, I saw a video of H being welcomed by a group of children in New York. In the video, he disengaged and shoved a child away who had his arms around H's waist. Is this real? What comment can we make?" The comment I would make, my dear, is actions speak louder than words, and his conduct is eloquent. Eloquent. Very, very disturbing. Scarson Lashons says, "Have you seen the video of Has physical abuse of the stage greeting of the school children in New York? Sick and horrified looking at this video. Has Netflix and everyone involved should be charged and has charged and arrested." Oh dear, I think that's maybe a little bit extreme, but if that's how you feel, you're certainly entitled to feel it. "It was jacked up. It just made me sick and I got mad, capital M-A-D. I can see that you're mad, actually, and mad as in angry. And I can see why you are mad as in angry. How could they put someone's children in danger like this for any reason?" Well, without trying to soft pedal the issue, I wouldn't have said they were in danger, particularly so much as in discomfort, and that the whole exercise has been extremely discomfiting. I thought the whole thing was wildly inappropriate. I don't want to go any more extreme than that, because there are times when a euphemism is by far the best way of dealing with something that is truly extraordinary. Lady Fox says, Can you please do an episode on Harry pushing a little boy and digging his fingers into the back of a little girl? This was caught on video during his New York visit. Meghan wasn't in this disturbing video. It looked like Harry was suddenly triggered and reacted aggressively towards this group of children. Apparently, he was quickly ushered away from the children. What in the world is happening to this man? This incident should not be dismissed. Any comments? I love your channel. It's very thought-provoking. Thanks from a Canadian girl. And then I will read the final of the many which I have selected. Andrea Donnan says, Harry was seen being rough to a couple of children. The abuse was worrying to see, and now we wonder what is happening to his own children. Actually, I'll read another one as well, in fact, because Josie Allen says, what was the seemingly crazy and malicious behavior of Harry at the kids' school about? You might well ask. I think it's been a grave error of judgment on his part. I think it has shown him in a deeply unflattering light. It's out there for everyone to see and for people to draw their own conclusions. I am sure his PR people will be able to soft pedal the whole incident with a series of anodyne explanations that will, they think, wish it away. But I hate to say it, the facts speak for themselves. I will say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and keep the questions coming in, please, in the comments. As I keep on saying, I couldn't do this without you. Thanks and goodbye. God bless.